All right, so briefly describe what Parks on the Air is. Here's the overview. What is the Parks on the Air is what we'll cover. So commonly used terms, pretty much how to activate, how to hunt, logging, and then official events for POTA. Next, please.
Okay, sure.
Right. So what is Parks and Air? What is POTA? POTA was started or was inspired back in 2016. The ARRL came out with National Parks and Air. National Parks and Air was a bunch of a program to encourage hams to go into the outside. If you have ever seen the movie Home, I'll use that reference. May I come to the outside? May I come in the outside, please? And so what it is they encourage our ham operators to go out into the national parks and to activate those national parks. So it's a good opportunity to set up your gear, test what works, what doesn't work. I kind of look at it as kind of a small field day, if you will. But that was back in 2016. It was a 1-year program. After that year program came and went, that one disappeared, and out of that came Parks on the Air. A group of amateur radio operators came together and organized Parks on the Air. It is a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, and it was completely volunteer ran. Everyone who goes out into those parks to make sure that the parks qualify to the IT, everything about Parks on the Air is all volunteer. I did look at it, and there are over 200 different countries, islands, and territories on Parks on the Air, which is actually a big increase from when it first started, and even 3 years ago when I did this presentation. And because of that, there are over 500,000 registered users worldwide, which is quite impressive. But one thing that I wanted to really put the hammer on there is this is not a contest. Parks on the Air is not a contest, so you can use the work bands if you want. That is the beautiful thing about that. You may get some pushbacks from other amateur radio operators, but it is not a contest. All right, so I'm going to cover some commonly used terms. And an activator is an individual who goes out into the federal, state, or government land territories to activate a park. Their responsibility is to ensure that all of their equipment is within that park boundaries. They're the ones going out there and they're half of them that are, let me phrase this, they are half of what makes up POTA. The other half is the hunters. The hunters are the individuals who are looking for the activators in these parks. An entity is any, I believe it's any, I didn't put the definition up there, it's any federal, state, or government-owned lands that qualifies for that. And an activity is, you'll hear me say if the successful activity is 10 unique contacts, but I'll cover that a little bit later. Next slide, please. So signing up is really simple. All you have to do is go to parksontheair.com or POTA.app in your web browser. Once you do that, you'll click, and I'll show you how to do this here in a minute. You'll click Help and Getting Started on the upper, I believe it's upper left-hand side. You'll sign in cognito, or you can create a username and password. Just remember that the username or the password is one of those silly ones that require, capital letters, lowercase letters, special symbols, and numbers. After you do that, you'll fill out the rest of the required information form, and then you'll submit that. Once you submit that, you'll get a confirmation email, and once you got a confirmation email, you are ready to go play in a park. Next slide, please. So this is exactly what I was just telling you. Give me 1 second to get coffee. It's very important. So, that was loud. So what you'll do is after you go to the Parks on the Air website, you'll go ahead and up here, you'll see the help getting started. Then you'll see it says sign up for POTA, and then we'll also have the rules, facts, and guides. So if you hit sign up for POTA, it'll take you to this next page. So this is where you would create your user account. So one of the things to remember about that is if you want to, or it's highly encouraged that you review all the rules and all the other information for this. That way you know exactly what you're getting into. Cool. And so once you create your username, you can do the with the social account, so you can do a lot of.
There we go.
Yeah. You can log in with Amazon, you can log in with Google, or if you have Facebook. If you don't want to log in with any of those or link your accounts, you simply put your email in there and then your password, or create a password for this, and then you'll sign in. Next, please. All right, now that you've signed in, how can I've signed up now, can I play? Well, before you go out there, again, you want to review the published rules and documentation, and in the web page, they'll actually have that information underneath or in one of the menus. I think I showed this on the slide. So you want to review everything, what qualifies as an entity, how any of the rules that are there for parks in the air. One of the big ones is that all of your gear has to be within the official boundaries, and it has to be public land. It can't be private land. So if you own, let's say you own a house or land in a national wild reserve or something like that, you can't just activate it on your own property. Now, if you take, 25 feet, 35 feet away from their house and it's not considered public land, then you can activate it there. You want to make sure that you follow the law. That includes all the FCC regulations, and follow the DX code of contact. And then I put it here, just remember to follow the golden rule. Next, please.
Hey, John,
Yes.
if you're activating, I can't remember because I've read the rules for this forever ago. If you're activating, is there a power limit for those that are activating?
No. Well, I actually get into this a little bit later, but the power, question. The question is there a power limit? It is whatever you're licensed to transmit under your current license. Okay. So great question. A few rules to remember. Again, as stated before, all your equipment must be within the park boundaries, not on public or not on private property. And do not trespass to get to the private property. Do not trespass on private property to get to the public property. Can you use repeaters? Terrestrial repeaters, you cannot. You cannot use a terrestrial repeater to activate the park. However, you can get on that terrestrial repeater, like the storage repeater we have here, and say, hey, I'm going to be on this frequency doing a Parks in the Air. If you'd love to, I'd love to get you in my books. If you would please go with that frequency, and I'll have a talk with you. Do a simple exchange and we're good to go. So yes, I have the power, the legal power. There we go. So yes, whatever it is that you are legally allowed to transmit, you can transmit that. And then the biggest thing is have fun. That is one of the things that that I like about this is that there's not a lot of rules and regulations. It's legitimately follow the FCC guidelines, follow state, federal, and local laws, follow the golden rule and the DX code of conduct. And that is pretty much it. Now they do have a lot of they do have some more documentation on the website. So if you want to get into the rules a little bit more further, but for the most part, this pretty much covers that. Next slide. So activating the park, location, and official documents. This is a big, I'm not going to say big pain because it's not really a pain point, but it can be confusing. And I will show you the official boundaries map and a couple other maps and why it might be a little bit confusing. But you want to make sure that all of your equipment, your transceiver, your power supply, and your antenna are all within that park boundaries. If they're not within the park boundaries, you're not following those rules. Okay. Back please. Other considerations, you want to take into consideration the weather. Obviously, if we're looking at, thunderstorms and tornadoes possibly, we probably don't want to be out in an open field with lightning strikes and dodging tornadoes or hailstorms. Same thing with hot temperatures. You don't want to hit up a winter coat when it's 90 degrees, and you don't want to be out there in shorts and a Bermuda shirt when it's 20. Space weather is another consideration. If we're in the middle of a geomagnetic storm, probably not going to get the most of the results. So if you do have, I think I get email alerts on space weather. from the Space Weather Prediction Center. And that will help me determine whether I want to go out there and play, or if I just want to go out there and not be around the house. So, space weather is another consideration. Again, parks opening status. So if a park is temporarily closed for whatever reason, I think when I did this presentation 3 years ago, I've used New Mexico as an example. They were in a severe drought with a high fire danger, and the state actually closed all of their parks. When they did that, that means nobody could activate in New Mexico. So that is a consideration. If those parks are officially closed by the individuals or the group that controls that entity, you cannot activate those parks. Same consideration with wildlife. Say there's and I made this mistake and personal experience. I went up, I want to say near the Greenleaf area, state park area, there was a little wildlife conservation area. And I didn't do my research, and I'm like, I'm gonna go there. I got free time, let's do this. I drove probably about 2-3 hours up there. Realized that the gate was locked when I was there, or when I got there. And the reason for that was because they had a wildlife birds breeding area or something of that nature. So they closed that park for that, so we wouldn't disturb them. Could I park at the gate and transmitted still on property? Absolutely not, because again, that park was closed. So you make sure that you follow those rules. There are no POTA police out there, but it is a matter of integrity. And I don't want anyone questioning my integrity in that. So, and then wildlife and people, there are, obviously you go out to, let's say, Lexington Wildlife Management Area. During hunting season, you may encounter wildlife, you may encounter hunters. So I don't go tromping through the woods not wearing orange if it's hunting season, because I don't want to be mistaken for a deer or Sasquatch or something like that. So just make sure that you're safe, and also with your footprints, which I'll describe a little bit later. You want to make sure you're not spread all out, and it really depends on the type of activation that you want to perform. Next, please. All right, so say you read rules, you're gonna follow those guidelines, signed up, you're ready to rock and roll. Let's play, right? Yes. But before we play, we have to make sure that we're in an actually official entity. So what I've done is I've actually highlighted the metro area, everywhere from Lexington Wildlife Management Areas, Lake Thunderbird State Park, Arcadia Conservation Area, and there are actually two that was a surprise to me, that I have no idea what they are yet because I haven't activated them, but they are on my list this New Year's Day. And that is the one above Arcadia and this one over here. I think that's by the OG&E power plant. So I plan on hitting those. And then there's also the bombing memorial and the Oklahoma State Historical Society. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that one up by Bethany.
Yes.
Stinchcomb.
What is it called?
Stinchcomb.
Stinchcomb? Okay. I have not had the pleasure of activating that one. Have you activated it? Then I will get with you a little bit later because that's on my list. But so there are some areas around here for that. For this presentation, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on US 6357 Lexington Wildlife Management Area. And what it is once you selected the park that you want to activate on that map, go ahead and hit that yellow dot. It'll open up these. It'll open up these pages, or this page that I've duplicated on this twice. And this will give you the name of that park. So this is the Lexington Wildlife Management Area. The reference number is US 6357. The location does include the grid. That's something that has been new since my last presentation. I know I've had a lot of people request my grid, but I just tell them I don't know, but this is where it's located if you want to do the research. I apologize. As well as any of the park leaders when it comes to activation attempts, the number of QSOs and the number of QSOs for hunters. And as well as the bottom underneath the map, we'll have the recent activations up there. So if you have a question about a park, and this is a great tool to use. If you have a question about a park that you have absolutely no idea about, which is the case for most of us, try to contact one of those individuals that has already activated that park, and they can definitely give you some pointers. So we are talking about the park boundaries. And what I presented here is three different maps from three different maps of US 6357 Lexington Wildlife Management Area. The first map on the top, which is the official boundaries map, is going to come from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation website. These guys, or this is the official boundaries. Okay, it doesn't matter what the other parks or what the other maps show you. That'll be the official boundaries. The next one over here is the Google, comes from Google Maps, and it pretty much looks close to the Wildlife Conservation, the Department of Wildlife Conservation map, but there's a little bit of differences. And then here's also a map from Parks and the Air website. And they mark the entire park with one yellow dot. You don't have to be on that yellow dot. That's just kind of referencing where that park is. So moving into selecting radio equipment. Three things you absolutely must have, and that is your transceiver with all of the gear. Who's ever gone, taken your transceiver and forgot the microphone? This guy, that's right. And let me tell you what, I'm glad I had two transceivers that day, because that would have been a very disappointing day. So you want to make sure that you have your transceivers. You want to make sure that you have your antenna. I would highly encourage several options, because you don't know, unless you've already been there or had a briefing with someone who's already been there, you don't know exactly what is allowed or what may not be allowed. And then a power supply. So I'm gonna go with the transceivers first, the QRO versus QRP. If you're backpacking, bicycling, or hiking into a park, it would make much more sense to have a lightweight, easy to transport rig. If you're in a vehicle, it would be the same thing. The thing is, you don't want to bring your desktop transceiver into the field if it weighs so much and you've only got so much space in your backpack. Same thing can be said with your batteries. There are several different options out there. My favorite one is the W5JWZ, because it's light and it's relative, or it is safe. I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. It's much more lighter and much more comfortable to carry around than a sealed lead acid battery. And then antennas. The antenna footprints, that's what we want to, that's what I kind of want to focus a little bit more on this slide, is the fact that it really depends on how you want to activate. Okay. A lot of times I see activators go out there with just a whip antenna. That's perfectly fine. I see activators go out there with verticals, and that's perfectly fine. I've seen them go. My first activation was with a Wolf River clip. And what I did with that is I had my radios out, and that worked really well too. It really depends on what that park will allow. Some parks will not allow you to hang antennas from trees. So you don't want to be in the middle of your activation, and all of a sudden an authority or the park ranger or someone comes out and says, hey, you can't put this up in that tree. You need to take it down now. What do? You take it down. And then you don't have another option. You're kind of, that's it. So you want to make sure you have a couple different options. For when I do my robes, I like to do the ham sticks on a tri-mount antenna. And that's just because it's easy. I get my 10, and then I turn my radio off, and I go to the next one. There are times where I did a homemade speaker wire antenna, sorry, with one counterpoint, put that up on my spider mast, and I think I stayed there for the entire day. That was absolutely beautiful. If you do something that's a little bit more spread out, it's highly encouraged that you mark particular areas like your radio field. A reason for that is because when I had my Wolf River coil out, and I was at Lake Thunderbird State Park, ground maintenance came out before I had an opportunity to wrangle all my radios. They managed to snag one up. The guy was upset with himself because he thought I was going to get mad that he had damaged the radio. So lesson learned was I actually got flags to mark my radial path. That way they're easily to see and no one can really trip on this.
John.
Yes.
You mentioned that antenna that you mentioned to me about the shovel.
Oh, And so the beautiful thing with attendance is it's up to your creativity. We had a guy in Iowa 2 years ago. He wanted to see how many contacts, or if he could make contacts with a snow shovel. He attached a snow shovel to a post in the middle of a field and took one counterpoint out, and he actually did an activation with a snow shovel. It blew my mind. If I think about it, I think I've got the clip saved, and I can share that a little bit later. But that was really neat. And then he packed in there with a snow tent and that snowshoes, because it's up in Iowa and it's a wide open field. And it kind of showed his how he got out there. So weight was a big thing because he was just hauling it out on snow. That's all we want. So again, that goes in with making sure that you're not carrying more than you can carry out there. And another gear to consider is, bug spray. Oklahoma, we love the mosquitoes around here. Sunscreen, make sure that you're applying that regularly. And then weather gear. Again, if it's cold weather, don't wear, parkas. No, it's right. If it's hot weather, don't wear parkas. If it's cold weather, don't wear shorts. I need some more. Next slide, please. So I sat through this boring stuff. Can we play it now? Almost. So the question is, what is considered a activation? An activation for that park is, again, you have to be within the boundaries of that park. You want to make 10 unique contacts. So what qualifies as a unique contact is going to be the UTC date, a call sign, a different mode, a different entity, and a different band. What information do you need for the exchange? And that is very simple. You need a call sign, the park number, and signal report. Obviously, you want to, for your logging purposes, you want to record the date, the frequency, the band, and the mode for yourself. The great thing about this is hunters do not require to submit logs, and I'll go into logging a little bit later, but they are not required to submit logs. Next, please. All right, so how do you make a contact? Well, there are three different thoughts on this. The first one is just sit up there, spin the VFO, and see what you hear. And that is perfectly fine. In fact, that's kind of what I do when I first get out to my park, just to make sure that my equipment is operating. So I will go and I will actually start hunting while out in that park. So, and when you hunt from your park to another park, it is called a park, and I'll cover that a little bit later. And so what you want to do is just spin the VFO, listen, try to break through their pile up and make that contact. And once you do that, and you know that they can hear you and your gear is good to go, then search for that open frequency. Another thing you can do is you can schedule the activation through the activation page, or schedule the activation page, and that's located on the POTA website as well. You can put in all the information that you want to include, if I remember correctly, the frequency, but you don't know if that frequency is actually going to be available at that time. So I usually leave that blank or tell them that this is what I want to attempt to be overactive. And then a third thing is you can use a spotting page. The spotting page will be wonderful if you're a hunter and an activator as well. I'll kind of give you an idea of where everyone's sitting and where they're activating from. Next, please. So to schedule an activation, what you'll do is you'll go to the parks on your website and you'll go to schedule an activation. Once you hit that, it'll automatically put in your call sign. The reference is point is the next required part of this form. Where are you going to activate, or where you want to activate, and then an approximate when you're going to, the day and time of when you're going to start and when you're going to end. And that way, if say someone's looking for hunted all entities or activated all parks or whatever reason they're looking for your particular state and your particular park, they can review that, see if that's something they want, and then try to get online. Trying to get on the account while you're on there. Again, they do have an area for frequency, but I wouldn't put that on there because you're not guaranteed that frequency. And then any comments. So if I've seen anywhere from, this family vacation, I'll be on and off, usually in the evenings. So once you do that, you'll hit save, and then it'll save that in there so people can look to see when those scheduled activations are. Next, please. So the spotting page is real simple. It's usually what pops up first when you put in parksontheair.com or the POTA app in your web browser. And the spotting page is a wonderful tool. So automatically puts on there your call sign. And then if you're a hunter, you can actually spot someone else. So you'll put in the activator's call sign, you'll put in your call sign, what frequency they are, their park reference number, and their times. One thing to take into consideration is that if you are a hunter and you do use the you use the spotting page, is that you record that information accurately. There's been several cases of people inadvertently putting in the wrong frequency, and so everyone who wants that park goes over to the wrong frequency, and the guy who's on that frequency at that activation, suddenly there's no one there. The great thing about this is if you are in a park that does have cell service, you can get on your cell phone and you can spot yourself. It's usually what I do after I do a little bit of hunting. I'll go ahead and find another frequency, make sure that that frequency is not in use, and then I'll activate it, or then I will get on the frequency, start calling, and then while I'm calling, I'm also putting that on the spotting page. And it is like magic. I kid you not, about 30 seconds after that thing has been in there and it refreshes, you'll start getting a bunch. So yeah, you just put all that information and then hit spot. Next please. Okay, so logging. There are two trains of thoughts of this as well. In reality, I've used both of them. When I first started, I would use the pen and pencil in the field because it's more convenient. It doesn't run on batteries. And if it gets wet, then it gets wet. I like it because I can record partial call signs in a pile up, and then I can start picking up those to make my contacts. So paper and pencil is great. The only downside about that is me personally, my U's and my V's look exactly the same. So there has been a few cases of where I would think that it's a V or a U. I put in the wrong one, submit my log, and then lo and behold, I get a request from the individual that contacted me and like, hey, I'm not getting credit. What's going on? I'll review my logs and they're like, oh, well, that's why. So if your penmanship is not the greatest, then maybe electronic would be the way to go. And the electronic is there are two programs that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's more now. The first one is Hammers, and the other one is I think I've got it in the next slide. The other one is the N3FJP. And I absolutely love that because it allows me to kind of control my pile up a little bit better. So submitting your logs regarding regardless of the number of contacts that you make in that park, submit it. Whether it's a successful activation, you've reached your 10 unique contacts, or you've only had one. Submit your logs so your hunters will get credit for that park. Again, your park may be the difference between hunted all entities and not in that park. So make sure you submit your logs. Once hunters do not need to submit their logs to POTA. And then, like I said, the N3FJP is a excellent logging program that I believe they just came on. They didn't just come up. Maybe within the last year, they came out with a Parks on the Air format, which is really nice. And then the logs have to be submitted in an there's an ADF file to the Parks on the Air website, and I will show you how to submit those logs. Next, please. So once you go into the Parks on the Air website, you'll hit the upper left-hand side, you will hit the options menu, and it'll bring down this beautiful thing where you can do your ads, you can add your spot, you can add the activation, you can look for active spots or pending activations, the map, the park list, top activators, hunters, and all that. What I want to focus is on the bottom of the page. It says My Log Uploads. Next, please. Once you hit My Log Uploads, excuse me. Once you hit that, it'll bring you to this page. And so what you do, once you've hit and save that API, you go ahead and put it, you'll either click that box on top and it will open up the search menu. You can drop your log in there. Once you drop that log in there, it'll bring up the second page where it'll show you that you just dropped that log in there. And the only thing that you have to do is put in your call sign, and the entity that you're at, and the location. Click these two boxes that verify that your logs are correct. And that your logs are correct, and you understand that the logs cannot be modified once uploaded. There are rules and the code of conduct. When you're saving your logs on ADIs, that's one thing I wanted to mention. Make sure that you save it in the format of your call sign at that park's identification number for. So for Lexington, it'll be US 6357. And then what I like to do, I like to put the date on there. So the two, like if we were to do it today, it would be 2024-12-14. After you check those two boxes, you'll go ahead and submit that log. Once you submit that log, it usually takes, I think they say it usually takes about 24 hours for it to reflect. However, I noticed that it's pretty quick, a lot quicker than 24 hours. So with that being said, hunters, we've covered a lot for the activators. Now we're going to cover a little bit for the hunters. You guys have 9 items to use because you have the AC or the heater. Oops. But you are extremely important because without the hunters, we would just be outside playing ready. So, thank you. If you did hunt in the past or you're planning on hunting in the future, thank you. We appreciate that. Makes it worth going out there and braving the elements. So, hunters, what equipment do you need? That's simple. You need a transceiver and 10 other power source. You can be in your shack, you can be in your home, you can be mobile, you can be in another park. Pretty much anywhere with all this equipment, as long as you can make a contact legally, make that contact. Neat thing about hunters is I was actually in Arkansas and I got contacted by an individual. I don't remember his call sign. He was about 2,000 or 3,000 feet above me. He was actually flying across the state park at that time. So that's actually really neat. We had a pretty quick conversation, and then he had to balance and pay attention to flying. Going into logging, do you need a log? Yes, you do need a log for your records, but you don't need to see that on the POTA website. Next. Okay, so why participate in POTA? Again, I want to stress that this is not a contest. The biggest thing is to practice, I say practice field operations. I like field day, love field day. Obviously, I come here, I think almost every year. And I absolutely enjoy it because it's just a thrill of getting out there, setting everything up, not being comfortable, getting on and really trying to break through some big pile-ups. You don't know exactly what the weather's going to be, but you're going to do it anyways. POTA is kind of a small scale operation of that. It's not as crowded. And you can do it around absolutely no one. If you are not a people person, but like to talk to them on the radio, you'll find yourself a wildlife management area. I swear you will not find a single soul out there on some days. Other days you will. But it's to practice your field operations. So to make sure that your equipment, if something happens, let's say the power grid goes down or something drastic like that, we have ways to practice our art. And I can't read that one. Wall art. So with it not being a contest, there are milestones that you can create as an activator and as a hunter. And there is a lot of those, a lot more than I had time to talk about. But they go off of, I believe it's 5, 20, 50, 100, and then keep on going in increments. You can activate, one of the coolest things is if you have 1,000 contacts in one entity, that is a kilo. There's a lot of people that chase kilos, that want to be part of that kilos. Activating all entities within the state or hunting all entities within the state. This is also a good opportunity to work all state, especially if you log through, log within World or QRZ. This is a good opportunity for those. It's wonderful. Next please. I think I talked way too fast. So let me go back to the rule real quick before I open it up for questions. The boundaries, one of the things I failed to mention was that there's a lot of historical trails that are on Parks and Air, or qualified for Parks and Air. If you decide to activate one of those historical trails, you want to make sure, one of the biggest rules for that is don't just plant in the middle of the trail. They say within, I believe they say within 100 feet of the trail, and that could be the trailhead, restroom, parking lot, as long as it's considered within those boundaries. But you want to be considerate of other people. You also want to make sure that, again, if you're running those radials, that you have a way to mark those, that people don't trip and avoid those trip hazards. If we've had some activators that were told that they would need to leave the park by, park rangers or something like that. If a individual authority, say a park ranger said, hey, you can't do this here, do not be confrontational, because you are not only a representative of Parks and Air, you're also a representative of the amateur radio community. So if you go out there and start causing big ruckus and whatnot, that may not leave a good taste in everyone's mouth. If someone is getting a confrontational as far as the authority figure goes, they say you can't hang antenna on a tree, take it down, contact your state representative, the state representative for Parks on the Air, and have a conversation with them. It may be something as simple as we need to update these rules, or we need to have a conversation, see what's allowed and what's not. And I think that's what y'all got for me. Is it?
When you go into a wildlife preservation place, do you have to have any permits or licenses?
As far as permits and licenses go, I believe that the state of Oklahoma requires some sort of licensing on there. I went and got a lifetime license for fishing. As a vet, that was a much cheaper option for me. That way it covers my bases. If they say, hey, what are you doing here? I'm doing Parks and Air, amateur radio, this is what I'm doing. Well, are you allowed here? Present my license, like, yeah. I know some other entities may require, permits to do that. If that's the case, then get with the entity or the individuals that control that entity and talk with them to see if a permit's required. I know that in certain cases, special use permits are required. Case in point is Alcatraz Island was just activated to do a yearly activation on Alcatraz. This is the fourth year, I believe. And every year they have to sign up for a special use permit for that. Then it takes a couple of months. So if you got a question of whether you need to have a permit for that, it doesn't hurt to contact the authorities on that. Good question. Next. Yes, sir.
Did you say that municipal parks can be part of this?
Municipal parks cannot. It has to be federal, state, or tribal. Thank you. Federal, state, or tribal. You can't just find a municipal park and act. Good question. Great question. Anyone else?
Hey, John, can you hear me?
State of Oklahoma does not require permits in most of the parks. However, they have a parking requirement at most of the parks that you pay for parking.
Yes.
On the SCAR's website, w5nor.org/POTA, there are 2 parks around Lake Thunderbird that are parking free places that you can park for free and you don't have to pay that permit. I don't know anything there. We as a club went there one time and did that kind of thing. So the state's got the parking permit thing. For those of you, me, that are over 62, you can get a free parking pass that will get you into all of those parking locations.
The entire military can get a free pass, basically.
Military gets the same thing, no matter the age.
It depends. But if you're retired, it's 100% disabled, it's available.
But I know that state of Oklahoma is that way. I do know that you talked about the Murrah bombing stuff. Dwayne and others from the city have activated that one many times. But the local noise is just terrible there. It's hard to hear. When you think of park, you think of big open areas, and that's not this place.
And there are some, like the Murrah bombing site, that you're not going to be able to set up anything there. So you need, for instance, when I first got into POTA, there was a guy who activated it, but he used his HT on 136.52. So a lot of those, like John said, know the park you're going to, know what regulations, because if the park ranger said, you guys can't do that, you need to leave, then you need to pack up and leave. Because being confrontational just makes it worse for anybody else that wants to.
Right, it puts a bad taste in that authority's mind about us.
And every park in Oklahoma that I've been to, we're not like places like Utah or California. There are places in California you cannot put any stakes in the ground whatsoever. And so if you're gonna activate, like most people, just have an antenna on the back of their vehicle, and they activate from the vehicle, from the parking lot that's in the park boundary. So, but you're gonna find places, if you're out and about and you're going to different states, make sure that you look at what the park regulations are. If the park ranger comes by and says, hey, you can't put any stakes in your thing. Pull your stakes up and, do something different.
And that's where we have those different antenna options, so we'll save your activation. It's no joke, yeah, if they say, as you were saying, is if, there's some areas that don't allow stakes in the ground. Don't allow stakes in the ground, and if they come out and say, hey, you can't have stakes in the ground, you gotta follow that. But just make sure that you're checking, scout out the rules of those parks and entities that control those, and if all else fails, contact someone who's already activated that.
Yes, have you had any confrontations in Oklahoma area
Have I had any confrontations in Oklahoma
with the
with?
gendarme,
Oh,
the game wardens? or-
no, game ones, no, absolutely not. The biggest thing is they'll look at me weird when I have my spider baby antenna messed up. They'll slow roll me, but no one's really keen to stop and ask me what I was doing, with the exception of one individual who claims to be, I want to say, and I quote, the park mama. That was interesting. I said, all right, well, you have a wonderful day, and I called that activation shortly after that. So that's all I got. Anything else? Any other questions?
I have a question. Can y'all
All
hear
right,
me?
so challenges. Hang on, we got one
Hello?
online. Oh, we got one online.
Hello, can y'all hear us?
Over there, hold on.
Can y'all hear us online?
Okay, go ahead online again, try again.
Okay, can y'all hear us online?
Yeah, but just give it to a volume here.
Okay, I actually have two questions, John.
Hold on 1 second. I'm having a hard time hearing. Hang on 1 second.
Okay, try that.
All right, go ahead and try again.
Okay, any better?
But
Okay, I actually have two questions and I'll ask them quickly. So first question is, you mentioned a POTA app. I'm not able to find it on my Apple phone. Is there a specific name you got to search by? Because I tried POTA and Parks on the Air.
gotcha. I do apologize. And so there is actually no official POTA app. If you type in your internet's web browser, POTA.app, it'll open up the POTA home screen directly to the spotting page. So there is no official POTA app. I know that there were some, a while ago, there were some third party
Awesome.
people trying to, but there is no official app.
Okay, awesome. And my second question is, and forgive me if you've already covered this, but I've read conflicting things and I read a lot on POTA, and one of these days I'll get off my duff and go activate one, but I'm mostly a hunter right now and I enjoy hunting. But there are those that say ask permission first, and there are those that say just go out and set up and wait and see if somebody comes by. So what is your take on that?
My take on that is I believe per the guidelines that you'll find in POTA's website is to ask permission first. That way, and here's the reason for that. And the reason for that is, say you're out there, you're in the middle of a pileup, someone calls you in saying, hey, there's someone suspicious out here doing something we don't know looks like they're talking to Russia or aliens, or I have no idea what they're doing. They've got a big, scary looking antenna and we are very concerned for their safety. So they go out there hauling. Yeah. Just find you on the radio. And then, of course, they're gonna ask you what you're doing, and, you know, they're gonna ask, hey, do you have a permit? And if you don't have a permit, depending on the ranger, they may just write you one there, or they may tell you to pack it up and come see them. So err on the side of caution and do your homework first. Contact the governing authority of that entity and see if there's going to be any special use permit. You don't want to travel, especially if you're going, let's say you're going cross country or into, you know, California or somewhere like national monument. And you don't do your homework and you buy a plane ticket, or you drive over there to do this activation. Or you center your vacation on this activation, just find out you can't because you don't have the permit. That'd be a lot of waste of time and money to get out there. So it may be best to contact them first.
John, the other half of that is, it's always easier to get forgiveness than it is permission. Take that with a grain of salt. Josiah is our rep in Oklahoma and County Enid. And what he has said is, if you look and there's other activations out there, you're in good shape. If you're the first person in, that's when you may have some difficulties and it would be worth a call. Problem is, if you call and talk to somebody, that somebody will be a different somebody than that's got the gun that's standing there saying, get out of my park. But you know, the right answer is, these are our parks. Your taxpayers paid for, your taxpayer dollars paid for these parks. This is a legal use of those parks. As long as you're not doing something that violates a rule, there's no reason that you should have any problems. I know one guy in Enid had a difficulty. It was an area that was an active hunting area. And the guy said, you can't be in here. Why? It's an active hunting area. Well, people might shoot you. So if I brought my gun and my hunting permit, I could do POTA here. And he said, you're in good shape. So, it depends who you talk.
What I will do, if I'm gonna activate, I will go see if somebody else is activated, and I will contact somebody on that list. And I'll ask them, okay, did you have any issues? Where did you activate from? Yada, yada, yada. So if you're one that doesn't necessarily want to go talk to the parks ranger, talk to somebody that's already activated. That's what I've done on every one of them. That way I know that, okay, can I stakes in the ground and whatever, and ask those questions to somebody that's already activated. And they're usually safe doing that.
Right.
Okay, so that's good advice. Do you actually have a spiel that you have to, when you ask permission, because they're not gonna know what you're talking about, you gotta convince them that what you're doing is harmless.
And I think if I recall correctly, on the website, they actually have a brochure that kind of describes what it is that we do out there. I'll have to see if it's still there. I know 3 years it was, so I'm sure it's still there, or it's been modified.
It's still.
It's still there? Okay, I've just been told it's still there, so that might be another resource to have with you in case you go out there and you get hit questions.
Don't start off with, hey, you know those Chinese balloon things?
Yeah, or those drones over the East Coast. Any other questions? Yeah, there you go. Any other questions? Okay, I completely forgot to put that on. There you go. So with that being said, I appreciate your time. I hope that I have enlightened you in POTA and at least interest you in there. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Dwayne, I believe you guys activate still. Y'all agree? No? No, okay. Okay. Or go to the POTA website and look at the commonly asked questions or any documentation they may have. Oh yeah, if you hear someone calling out POTA, do yourself and them a favor. Try to contact them, because say you're not interested right now, but you are interested later and you sign up, all those contacts you've already made will automatically be there under your call sign as soon as you register. So you might be getting some wall art really quickly if you want to contact. All right, that being said, thank you for your time and you want to finish?
Take a 5-minute break, so we'll start up at 10:30.